I can tell you personal attacks that has been going on for more than 2-3 months. Abuses, or racist comments, giving me names, black or negro. I'm proud of being black or proud of being negro, because that negro is black, black is black, and I'm proud. I don't care, to be honest. And thank you for asking that question. Maybe for the first time I would make this public. Even death threat, I don't give a damn, because it's personally targeted to me. 3 months in the same situation. What makes me sad is, I said it last presser, when the whole black community was insulted, when Africa was insulted, then I don't tolerate. Then I say people are crossing the line. When it's personal, even death threats, I didn't care. I didn't even respond. When, as community, people start to insult us, that's enough. That's enough. We cannot tolerate that. But since I don't have any inferiority complex when I am personally affected or attacked by racial slurs, I don't care, because I am a very proud black person or negro. I don't care being called even negro. I am. That's what came from some quarters. And if you want me to be specific, 3 months ago, this attack came from Taiwan. We need to be honest. I will be straight today. From Taiwan. And Taiwan, the foreign ministry also, they know the campaign. They didn't dissociate themselves. They even started criticizing me in the middle of all that insult and slur. But I didn't care. 3 months. I say it today because it's enough. But still, they can continue. I don't care. Because what I care is when humanity is insulted, when we don't care, when we have more than 60,000 body bags. I care when the crosses are lined and when black community is insulted as community. So it's not personal. I tolerated 3 months and I can tolerate 3 years, 30 years, 300 years. No problem if it's personal, if it's targeted to Tedros. But I assure you, we will do everything right in WHO. We will do everything that we can to serve humanity. We will do everything that will help us to have no regrets at all. The focus of all political parties should be to save their people. Please don't politicize this virus. It exploits the differences you have at the national level. If you want to be exploited, and if you want to have many more body bags, then you do it. If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it. My short message is, please quarantine politicizing COVID. The unity of your country will be very important to defeat this dangerous virus. No need to use COVID to score political punches. No need. You have many other ways to prove yourselves. This is not the one to use for politics. It's like playing with fire.
Apart from creating chaos, tens of thousands of premature deaths and shutting down large parts of the global economy, the coronavirus pandemic has shed some light on some home truths. One is the evil deceptions of the Chinese communist regime. The way Beijing silenced and intimidated the early medical whistleblowers in Wuhan, the way it denied the virus, ignored the repercussions and deceived the world about a threat that was coming its way was deplorable. And who do you think was right there at Beijing's side, helping with the deception, giving precisely the wrong message to the rest of the world? It was the World Health Organization, the United Nations health body that claims in its mission statement to be all about keeping the world safe. Seriously. The WHO boss, Tedros Adhanom, went to Beijing in late January, supposedly on a fact-finding mission, but for all the world it looked like he was bowing at the feet of Xi Jinping. And rather than warn the world or demand China do more, he only had praise for China.
And the other important element is the political commitment and your personal leadership, which we have been following, and also your team, which will help to stop this virus.
Now, this was a crucial time. This is when people were travelling freely between Wuhan and Italy, Wuhan and Iran, and other parts of the world. This is when the coronavirus was spreading globally. But when the WHO boss got back to headquarters, have a look at what he had to say.
The Chinese government is to be congratulated for the extraordinary measures it has taken to contain the outbreak, despite the severe social and economic impact those measures are having on the Chinese people. We would have seen many more cases outside China by now, and probably deaths, if it were not for the government's efforts and the progress they have made to protect their own people and the people of the world.
Yeah, all hail to Beijing, hey? Apparently the Chinese communists were doing us all a favour. Adhanom has been off the pace and off course all the way along. Remember, he suggested it was racist to ban travel from China or to call this a Chinese virus. And here he was in late January, after Australia had stopped flights from Wuhan, and while we and a number of other countries were about to ban travel from China, here was the WHO saying it would be wrong to restrict travel.
There is no reason for measures that unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade.
Remember, as I said, the WHO claims its mission is to keep the world safe. Yet it was praising China, reassuring the world and actively campaigning against travel restrictions. No wonder the US president had this to say today.
WHO, that's the World Health Organization, receives vast amounts of money from the United States, and we pay for a majority, a biggest portion of their money. And they actually criticized and disagreed with my travel ban at the time I did it, and they were wrong. They've been wrong about a lot of things, and they had a lot of information early, and they didn't want to. They seem to be very China-centric.
China-centric, eh? Donald Trump points out that the US, as usual, is the largest donor to the WHO, donating about double what China does. And the president has had enough.
They call it wrong. They missed the call. They could have called it months earlier. They would have known. And they should have known. And they probably did know. So we'll be looking into that very carefully. And we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it, and we're going to see. It's a great thing if it works, but when they call every shot wrong, that's no good.
Yeah, it's little more than a distraction in some ways now, because the US, like every other country, is having to deal with this crisis on its own. It's sovereign states, nation states, that are dealing with this crisis now, not so much with the assistance of multilateral bodies like the UN and its WHO, but in spite of them. Yep, that's a bit of light shed by this virus. people and countries battle crises around the world, so often not with the help of the UN, but in spite of mismanagement by the UN. I'm joined now by the digital editor at Sky News, Jack Houghton. Good to see you again, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
Love getting your feedback on what people are responding to about stories we've been running here. Now, I, like you, have been focused on the World Health Organization this week. I mean, what a joke of this organisation, and their leader, Tedros Adhanom, seems to be getting increasingly desperate in his defence of himself.
Yeah, he just gave a press conference, obviously, after you outlined a lot of his bungles in your editorial last night, which got a lot of feedback and it's gone absolutely viral. But he's now out there blaming racism, saying he's copying death threats. It's getting very obscure, and it's actually moving very far away from the original complaints, which were that he is in the pocket of China.
Well, but when he's talking about the racism stuff, as I mentioned at the top of the program, even then he's blaming Taiwan. So he's even sort of adopting a Beijing line when he's defending
Exactly,
himself.
and the United Nations, they're trying to prop him up and do some damage control. They're actually releasing media alerts and full articles saying, well, let's not politicise COVID-19. Then you've got the head of the World Health Organization attack Taiwan for the alleged death threats of individuals potentially associated with Taiwan. I think he needs to now explain, first I think he needs to release these death threats, and I think he needs to explain how they're linked to Taiwan.
Well, the point is the criticism is they were slow to call the threat, and they told countries not to put up travel bans.
Exactly.
And they didn't even declare a pandemic until a lot of other countries like Australia had already done so.
Exactly. And there's a fascinating backstory. It was January 30, where they actually met a group of elite doctors and experts in their panel who they will not tell me the names because they don't want these guys to come under fire, but they met in Geneva and they discussed the ramifications of what would be travel bans. They actually decided not to go ahead with it and not to declare a global health emergency, but there were a few dissenting voices. So the official meeting records actually say, well, there was a divergence of views, but they won't actually go into detail about who was trying to block it. But there were doctors there who wanted to issue a travel ban, and the World Health Organization blocked it.
Well, let's have a look at some of the feedback to this story that you've got for us from digital social media. Shane Collins here says it's time we distance ourselves from all these organisations claiming they represent the world. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, the WHO is a UN organisation, of course. Craig Johnson says that Tedros isn't even a doctor. He's the first non-doctor to head the WHO. I think he's a microbiologist. He's a communist from Ethiopia, and no wonder he loves China's line, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. I don't think I've seen a level of engagement with a story like this, potentially since the bushfires, where everybody was weighing in. The World Health Organization's response to this needs to be explained, and I think Australia, for our financial contributions to them, America as well. We know Donald Trump, he's going to pull his $400 million. He's going to launch an investigation. We need to know, because the Financial Times has reported, we know this for a fact now, that the Communist Party put this man in this role.
Look, just briefly, Bernie Sanders, he's out of the race at last. Here's what he had to say.
I've made an honest assessment of the prospects for victory. If I believed we had a feasible path to the nomination, I would certainly continue the campaign. But it's just not there.
It's been obvious for ages, hasn't it?
Obvious for ages. I thought it was really interesting in the longest speech how he's saying, well, we've won the ideological war. But I always find that funny when the concession speech, the losing speech, has to say you've won something which you've obviously lost.
Yeah, he's boasting about dragging Democrat politics to the left. I wouldn't be boasting about that. Thanks for joining us, Jack. Appreciate it. Jack Houghton is the digital editor here at Sky News.
They called it wrong. They called it wrong. They missed the call. They could have called it months earlier. They would have known. And they should have known. And they probably did know. So we'll be looking into that very carefully. And we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it. And we're going to see. It's a great thing if it works. But when they call every shot wrong, that's no good. They called it wrong. They called it wrong. They missed the call. They could have called it months earlier. They would have known. And they should have known. And they probably did know. So we'll be looking into that very carefully. and we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it, and we're going to see. It's a great thing if it works, but when they call every shot wrong, that's no good.